Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Streetlight Demonstrations and Reviews. This evening we have a General Electric M400, which is commonly referred to as the split door based on the two-door design it has. So they came out with this in 1970 to replace the single door original style M400 that was released in 1959, and instead of just making everything have the ballast on the door, GE decided to offer the top mounted ballast but use the design of the ballast door fixture, which is how this happened. The M400A came out first in 1967 and was the very first fixture to use high pressure sodium. And I guess they just decided, instead of only offering the power door model or developing a new design for the single door model, they just did this. And what's interesting about this is it's actually a high pressure sodium fixture, and it was made in 1976, which is kind of cool because normally, in my area especially, these are always mercury vapor from this era. So it's kind of cool to see one in sodium. So this one is a little bit different than the Crime Fighter I made a video of earlier, where even though both are split door, and you can see here what I was talking about in that video, it has a little oval for where the C would have been on a Crime Fighter, if this were a Crime Fighter I should say. So this one, woo, yeah, that was awesome. This one has a latch that just shoots it into the oblivion, evidently, for the little ballast door instead of a screw. So that's what makes this early, because later on they used a screw, and here's the screw terminal actually for said screw. This is kind of just a regular spring latch, and I wasn't really prepared for it to shoot that far. But here's this giant beefy mid-70s General Electric HPS ballast. It's pretty large. Did not have a photocell socket on it, so there is just a hole there. But yeah, it's pretty neat. Got your standard issue stuff with GE. Your little mount for the optical door. The latch mounts right there with the screw. So all pretty standard for this series of M400. And the slip fitter is again, the slip fitter bolts are again on the top. So pretty cool. And then we'll open up the actual optical assembly. Has some resonance in here, some spooters. But that's not your normal HPS lamp now, is it? This is a Westinghouse Ceramolux. Really it's Philips, but it's right when they transferred everything over and merged the companies, rather bought off the light bulb side of Westinghouse. So this is just effectively a Westinghouse bulb with a Philips label on it. This is a deluxe Ceramolux lamp, 400 watt. So it looks just like a coated mercury vapor lamp. It's even a BT37 shape. Thought that would be kind of a neat bulb to display in here. And in this era, they didn't change the reflector much for Mercury or HPS, but I believe they had a different reflector in the 80s, I'm pretty sure. It was a little bit better with light distribution, because to be quite honest, these things are not the greatest at light distribution. They rely a lot on the glassware, which itself is a good glassware for light distribution, but the reflector, you know, aids in the process, and it just doesn't do as good of a job in real life circumstances. This latch is not as seized as the Chicago Crime Fighter. This is actually a local fixture from the state of Texas. Not local to me, because again, this is not my light. This is also the same person's light. So we'll go ahead and turn this on. Guess I'll just leave the glass closed, because, you know, whatever. The color is not any different. It's just, that was cool. Color is not any different than standard sodium. It's just got white paint on it. I don't even think it's actually a phosphor coat. Although I could be wrong, but it certainly doesn't seem to be, because it's just more of a diffused kind of ordeal. I'm used to seeing these fixtures silver because they ordered them silver, I guess, because every single fixture that, all of these, whether they're an A or a split door around me, have perfect silver finish to the point where it's obvious that it's not paint wear. Because if it were paint wear by the sun or whatever, then the bottom of the fixture, which is not exposed to the elements as much, would still be gray, but they're just not. They're all silver, or unpainted, really, it seems. So that's kind of interesting. But it's kind of weird seeing these gray, because like I said, that's not really something we normally have. Now, there are on some areas gray ones, and they look like this. They're not faded in any way, really. So, kind of interesting. I know that if you custom ordered stuff, you could probably do that, and I think these were actually offered in an unpainted or silver color, but I don't think catalog wise the A2 was, but we also have a bunch of silver ones too. They're all the same as the A's. But yeah, this is a pretty childhood scenario right here, because the Texas Department of Transportation liked using these in the 70s and 80s, mostly the 80s it seemed. As the 70s, it appears that they used OV25s actually for their early sodium fixtures. Yep, every time without fail is when airplanes decide, oh, and that's a prop plane. Oh, so that flew out locally then. Thanks. Anyway, yeah, so it's really interesting to see this right in front of me in HPS, because even though there are a lot of Mercury, GE M400 split doors, and even M400As around me, including some that are currently on poles right now as we speak, or as I speak, rather, I do see more of these in high-pressure sodium on a day-to-day basis, because, like I said, the highway department used them mostly in the 80s for HPS setups, either retrofits or brand new highways. And then my utility offered these as early HPS fixtures, which early for that my utility was like 1983, 1984, so not not early like some areas. We were late to the sodium game, really, in most parts of this state. And it still is not fully HPS by any metric today, nor is it fully LED, luckily, so it's very mixed. But yeah, I like these a bit more in Mercury, just because I like Mercury Vapor better, but I actually quite like this. You don't hear me say that very often, because sodium is not something that I fawn over, because it replaced so many things I really liked as a kid that I kind of have a sour taste about it, or I guess I should say a salty taste about it, since it is sodium after all. But it is nostalgic too, because my hometown had already converted to sodium in nearly everywhere by about 4 to 3 years maybe before I was born. They had completed that. And so that's all I saw until I left my hometown and go to all the other cities around me, which, like the one I live in now, has a lot of Mercury, and that's one of the cities that I really enjoyed seeing as a kid. So they have split doors in mercury and A's in sodium. I guess either we did have some conversions with ballast doors or they were factory. I'm not 100% sure yet. I've never been able to open up one, obviously, to find out, but the tags are so similar to the M400 A2s that I'm wondering if they're newer doors. I have seen some mercury M400As on the system before, so it's possible that they did indeed convert just the power door fixtures to sodium and then everything else just got replaced because that was easier, I guess. I mean, that's possible, or it's also possible that they were just factory sodium, and if that's the case, it's kind of interesting since I thought my area was more of a late 80s, early 90s sodium conversion area, but I guess maybe they started earlier than that. So, split doors are only really seen in sodium on freeways here, which there is still one left that has these. Everything else has been converted over to LED or some other form of lighting, like brand new poles and lights in a different way because they tore up the whole road, or high masts, which is another common thing that kills off the lighting setups with the poles. So there's only one left with that drop lens M400A, or sorry, split door setup in the whole area, sadly. It used to be very plentiful. Like, seriously, these were a very common freeway fixture in the early 80s. And I always enjoyed looking at them because it's not the best looking GE fixture, but it definitely is a nice looking fixture. They did a good job kind of making the split door design cohesive with the rest of the fixture. I like the lines here and there. That's a really nice touch they did, so it's pretty cool. Definitely neat to be able to film one of these and do a review on it, because yeah, I don't own one of these yet, but I'm sure I will at some point anyway. So yeah, I guess because it's kind of cool, I'll open the fixture to show you what this looks like. Because it is kind of amusing to see a coated BT37 lamp that's orange, and it's not a /Y mercury lamp, which would be caution yellow. So yeah, kind of cool. Not every day do you see that. I don't know anywhere on this utility system that ever used this type of light bulb, which it would have been cool if they did, but as far as I know, they were not used. Just the clear sodium lamps. Before I turn it off, I must take a picture on my phone. It's kind of amusing. Alright. Of course, that ballast is a little noisy, but what can you expect? It is a GE. It's kind of a charming characteristic about GE fixtures. They nearly all are loud. Seriously, they all of them are loud in some form. It's kind of funny. And it's just the way their varnish ages. It's nothing really bad. I mean, the ballasts were never the best, but their HPS was way better than their mercury ballast, I guess, because a lot of the mercury split doors around me have failed over the years, and in fact, we just recently lost a few of those to ballast failures. So, meanwhile, the HPS stuff, there's a lot more of that, although those are dropping quite a bit now too. And everything is still relamped here, so it's not an issue of, oh, we don't want to change the bulbs, so we're going to change the fixture, because the HPS ones are also rapidly declining in numbers. So, as I mentioned with the Crime Fighter, it's not the most amazing constructed fixture ever, but it's still not horrible either. It's kind of on the lower mid side of construction, because it's still kind of thin casting, but it's actually surprisingly better than the latest generation of the original M400, which are kind of bad. The gray ones, I should say. I think the earlier ones that were silver were actually somewhat solid. And I don't have any experience with them, but that's what I've heard. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you. Come again. Goodbye.